Restorative Discipline Practices. I'm your host, Dr. Gaye Lang with the Texas Education Agency. I'm the statewide director for Restorative Discipline Practices. Our first series begins today. Restorative Practices, the Untapped Goldmine. Yes, I said goldmine. Can you imagine having something right at your fingertips and it's all well done and it's called Restorative Practice and reduces discipline? Who wouldn't want that? Everybody, right? So our panel today and I will be discussing what is restorative practices. We're going to give you some concrete benefits and some concrete examples and some extra takeaways. So what is restorative practices? Well, according to Dr. Marilyn Ulmer, who we partnered with to do this at TEA, she defines restorative practices as this. Defines restorative practices as a relational approach to building school climate and addressing student behavior. The approach fosters belonging over exclusion, social engagement over control, and meaningful accountability over punishment. So we have a whole lot of, instead of doing this, do this. So our panelists will introduce themselves and give you their take on what it means to them. So can you start out for us, Laura?
Hi, thank you so much, Dr. Lang, for having me be part of this YouTube series. I really appreciate this definition and love sharing it in training. I want on t-shirts and banners. And I believe this definition just encompasses everything that we would like to see in a school and in ourselves and in our students. I think it really taps into what discipline actually is all about.
Yeah.
When I was a student, when I was a child, I didn't get in trouble because I didn't want to get in trouble with at home. And I just would kind of cringe if I got an S on my conduct. And I ask adults now, how do y'all get these conduct grades, these discipline grades? Is it a worksheet turned in? What do you do to get these conduct grades? It's subjective. That's what it is. And we're not actually going through and teaching discipline. But with restorative practices, and this definition tells us we can teach students the importance of respect, the importance of being kind, the values that motivate behavior and connection. It also brings on the accountability piece, which a lot of people don't understand about restorative practices. There is meaningful accountability with this work. And so I just think that this definition says it all.
You resonate with it. Love it, love it, love it. So Aretha, introduce yourself.
Thank you, Dr. Lang. Thank you, Laura, for having me here today. My name is Aretha Franklin Burleson, and yes, I do sing. I am from Houston ISD. I am the Restorative Discipline Practice Coordinator for Robinson Elementary. What this definition means to me is that building relationships. We must build those relationships with our students, with our parents, with our teachers, within our community, to make sure that we have the right outcome for our students, for our learners. I just don't talk it, I walk it.
Yes, ma'am, I like that.
I love it.
All right, I'm hearing you, I'm feeling that. So when did discipline become a dirty word? I don't know. But I'm disciplined, you're disciplined. Discipline means you take accountability, you take responsibility, you have your self-control. We're teaching our young people how to have some of that self-control so they're not so much always in a position where they have to defend what they're doing or someone tells them they're doing the wrong thing. And so discipline is a good thing, not a bad thing. Thank you so much for sharing, ladies. So you talked about it being in your schools, you're working in different school districts. So I would like for you now to tell me some benefits or a benefit. And when you tell me this benefit, if the benefit is reduction in discipline, relationships, whatever it is, can you give me a concrete example of that as well? Aretha, why don't you get started for us?
Well, Dr. Lang, for us on our campus, we have fewer office referrals. Our teachers are maintaining, they are conducting circles, they are building those relationships with our students. Before the process even started, before restorative practices came to our campus, discipline was just everywhere. We were seeing like 20 students a day in and out of the office, teachers upset, teachers leaving. It was just all over the place. But after the implementation of restorative practices, zero discipline problems. It is a process. Now, it wasn't a one size fit all. And what I mean by that, it just didn't happen overnight. We just didn't wake up and say, we're doing already restorative practices. It just didn't happen overnight. It is a process, but I can rest assured.
The benefits were that the discipline referrals dropped and the teachers became happy. Okay, so the benefits were they dropped and the teachers got happy. I like that. That's a good benefit. Laura, what's yours?
Well, I first started using restorative practices in another district in Beaumont ISD, and we saw in our disciplinary settings a drastic drop just in the very short time that we had implemented before I left to go to Crosby ISD. For example, we had 117 unique students that we worked with in restorative practices, having circles twice a week. And of those 117 kids, only 15 of them came back to ISS. So the numbers, I'm not to zero yet, like Miss Aretha's campus, but it makes a significant impact in discipline. I had a circle group with students who returned last week from a discipline off-campus setting, and our associate principal joined. Now, this principal has been trained in Tier 1, so she was familiar. And after the circle, she was like, whew, that was for me, and she felt that. She felt the connection. She felt the power of the circle. Small children in second grade were excited for me to come visit their classroom so they could tell me about the respect agreement that they built, that they created. They came up with it. And little second graders could articulate why it's important to respect each other, how to show respect to each other and get along. And that's impactful. That's huge.
What benefits? They understand what respect is, and they know the value of respecting something and someone. Very good. I love those benefits and I love those examples. If you could tell the people that are listening right now or watching, if you could give them one takeaway, what's your one takeaway, and tell us why? What's your one takeaway of all the things we've been talking about? We talked about how the students benefited. We talked about the discipline referrals going down. We talked about the benefit of an administrator saying, well, this was really great. We talked about the number of students from 20 every day in the office to almost down to 0. So what is your takeaway? What would you tell them? What's your takeaway today? And Laura, you want to start and tell us why?
Sure. My biggest takeaway with restorative practices is that it is truly a way of life. It's transformative. You can see the physical change almost in students and in teachers, how they go from having even a grumpy kind of disposition to opening up and feeling like they belong. Knowing that they have positive relationships with trusted adults. It's just a way of life. It becomes part of what you do daily, not just in a circle. So that's my biggest takeaway. It is just a way of life.
So in your opinion, of all the things you said, it's transformative and it's a way of life. It's a process.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Aretha, what do you want to say?
Restorative practice is a process that builds and strengthens sustainable relationships in a positive manner. And I love it. Again, walk it and talk it.
Yes, you walk the walk and talk the talk. You live it every day. I love it. I just think that when we talk about restorative practices, people get something in their mind that means it's going to take up so much of my time. Oh my God, I'm not going to have the time. But you understand, if you put time in on the front end, there will be many benefits on the back end. So you have to start somewhere. So even if you just started with just simple things like teaching them how to pass the talking piece are waiting their turn during that time, it's important. So I really want to thank you, ladies, for joining us. Thank you so much for listening, and tune in to our next series, Restorative Practices. It's all about building relationships.